All right. Hello, guys. Welcome to another edition of Behind the Visual with Mark Hansen, that podcast where I interview all those people responsible for putting together and creating all those images and videos you see out in your world every single day. I am your host, advertising lifestyle photographer Mark Hansen. And today, my guest is Liz Miller Gershfeld. And Liz is the VP Executive Art Producer at Energy BBDO in Chicago. And Liz has been at this position for over 20 years. She's seen a lot of things. She's done a lot. She's a great person, lots of fun to talk to. We talk about all kinds of stuff. We talk about her first shoot as a freelancer was with David LaChapelle. And he was actually doing a casting for another shoot. And wait till you hear about that one. So let's just say it was for MTV, and it was definitely a little bit offbeat. So lots of fun there. Her first unpaid PA assignment was for a prison movie. So she was basically working with the extras who happened to be the prisoners. So she tells us that story. She gives us a little bit about life as a producer and what that enhances or entails, not enhances, what that entails, what being a producer is like. And also some things about photographers that she wished that they would all do to make her life a little bit easier. Talk about all kinds of stuff. Also another shoot she did back in LA, out in California, that had some interesting consequences that had to do with the forest fires that were going on at the time. So definitely check this one out. It's lots of fun, lots of cool information, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Be sure and like it, thumbs up it, subscribe, leave a comment, all that kind of stuff, and let me know what you think.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, thank you. I really do appreciate you doing this. I'm excited about this.
It's cool. Fun. I was compelled, and I saw some of your other podcasts, or I don't know, what do you call it when you see a podcast, when it's the video? I was watching them on.
I don't know what you call that. Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, we got to come up with a name for it, right?
Yeah. I don't know what they call it. Can it still be a podcast?
Podcast and more.
I don't know. Yeah, there you go. We'll just call it and more.
Right.
Well, tell me, okay, so what made you an art producer? Was this whole thing something that started when you were a kid and you're like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to like produce shoots?
No. Oh, yeah. It's, I guess, like a lot of people in advertising, it's sort of a circuitous route. I mean, I've been interested in photography forever. I grew up in Detroit, and we used to, on Sundays, we used to go to the Art Institute, the Detroit Art Institute, which is like the finest institution. And we used to go there every Sunday. We go to the Art Institute, we go to Greektown, and I just grew up loving art and being immersed in it. And my parents had this, I don't even know where they got it. I don't know if it was like, I don't know why they came to have this collection of art books, but they had a particular group of books that had, you know, like Henri Cartier-Bresson and like some of the great photographers. And so I grew up looking at this photography and loving it.
Did you shoot any?
What's that?
Did you shoot?
Well, when I was a kid, I had an instant camera. I had I had a Polaroid that you cranked.
Oh yeah. Wow.
And then I had a Canon Snappy. And so I did document my life, but you know, my attempts at art were not good. They were but they felt good, you know. And then when I went to school, I studied journalism, and I had a minor in natural sciences, environmental sciences.
Oh, wow.
But in journalism, of course, you know, you do have you do some photojournalism, and so I had some darkroom classes and photo history and things like that. And then at the end of my college career, I was at Michigan State so now everybody's going to know how old I am, but it's okay. I'm cool with it. The 1992 presidential debates came to my college campus. And at the time I was doing an internship at the MSU News Bureau. And so through that internship, I got to work on the debates. And so the way they worked back then, there was a news feed. So it was, so it was, like each debate, it would be ABC, CBS, or NBC. And it was CBS that time. And so they hired me as a PA. And I had this amazing all access pass, and I got to, in the morning, I got to give all of the journalists their schedule of the day, and it was very exciting. And so then after I graduated, I knew I wanted to somehow be involved in this production excitement. So I moved to Chicago with no job whatsoever and
Really?
not a lot of direction about exactly what aspect I wanted to be involved in. And I waited tables because that's what you do.
Yeah.
And through that job, I met a person who introduced me to the world of PAing in Chicago. And I ended up working as an unpaid intern on a low budget prison film. And oh my gosh, my parents were horrified because I was like, this is such a great opportunity. Of course, I'm not getting paid $1, but I will get meals.
Well, there you go. There's something. My brother will do anything for free food. So maybe you and him have something in common.
So my job on that was they made me the second AD, which basically meant that I was wrangling the extras talent. And on a prison film, that means you're wrangling the prisoners in the prison yard.
Oh,
and
wow.
So basically, I'd have a walkie-talkie, and I was being told, okay, so give cigarettes to that prisoner over there, and bring these, and it was crazy. You drive into the set and walk in, and there's a room that says strip search with like a little plaque over it that says hair and makeup, and
oh my God.
So that was, but it didn't discourage me. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was an interesting experience. And so from there, I worked on a handful of other low budget films. I did craft service on a film, and wrangled talent on a number of them. And through that, I started working with a local director, mostly doing casting for him, but eventually he made me his producer. And it really was, it was learning the hard way, because I did not know what I was doing, but I was being given opportunities, that lots of chances to fail, but also lots of chances to learn.
Were you finally getting paid?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. That's good. At least you're getting paid something.
A little bit. And over time, I learned about this job that existed. They called it an art buyer. And I thought, what is an art buyer? That sounds like the person who buys posters for an ad agency. You get paid for that? Weird. Sign me up. That sounds pretty good. But I got to work with the agency where I am now. I've been here for 21 years, if you can believe that. Old school. Yeah. And I was freelancing for the agency, and I was producing radio. I was producing radio for an entire summer.
Really?
And learned that they needed an art buyer at the time. And they brought me on to freelance for a project where they were shooting with David LaChapelle. So my very first chance
first gig was with David LaChapelle?
My first gig was with David LaChapelle.
How
And
was that?
it was, I didn't know any.
Right. Was he a
now
diva? Because I've heard stories that he can be.
he has got a remarkable vision and quite a personality, and it was an amazing experience. I remember that we were shooting, but he was also casting at the time for another job he was working on, which was the Millennial Rolling Stone cover, where he had female impersonators of famous divas in music. So, like the Madonna and the Tina Turner and
Was he casting on set while y'all were shooting?
yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. It was so
Wow.
anyway, it was a unique experience, and I didn't know how unique it was because it was my first time doing that. And then I was offered the job after that, and the rest is my personal history. So, yeah,
That's incredible.
it's been such a wonderful opportunity.
Was your next shoot after David LaChapelle a complete letdown?
I'm trying to remember what the
I
next
would
one
think
after
David
that
LaChapelle
was.
casting drag queens or whatever would have to be like setting the bar very high, and you could not measure up.
Yeah, right. I don't recall being let down because
That's
it was
good, at
all
least.
interesting, and I just didn't know how unique that experience was at the time.
Wow, that's incredible. All right, what kind of dog do you have?
Oh, yeah, here he is. Let me see.
Furry. Oh,
He's a standard poodle.
yes, very cool.
Yeah.
I like
We
that.
we adopted him. Gosh, he's 8. We adopted him when he was 3.
Really?
So how lucky is that?
You just give up poodles?
Not typically.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a unique and
Yeah, I've
privileged
never
thing
heard
it
of
was at the
like people
time.
adopting a poodle. That's cool.
I'm telling you, it's funny. When I was in the 4th grade, I had a series of lucky things happen that I had no idea how fortunate. I guessed the number of jelly beans in a jar, and I won this gingerbread complex, and I won a 10-speed, and I even won a small amount of money in the lottery. So I have to
Really?
say, I feel like I'm a fortunate person.
I'll say yes. And that was all 4th grade?
Well, that's when
Well,
it started.
it
That's when the
started.
luck
Oh, so
started,
you
was in the
started
4th
in 4th
grade.
grade.
Yeah.
Wow. What'd you do in 4th grade? I want to know. Make it
Yeah.
start.
I don't know. I
That's
don't know.
impressive. Wow. And then you find the poodle, which nobody gives up poodles.
Yeah, he's great. And it's funny because my husband I grew up with dogs. My husband never had a dog. And I said, look, we have this opportunity through a friend of a friend. Well, the dog needs to be trained. It needs to be hypoallergenic. It needs, all these things. And I'm like, check. So there you go.
So the poodles don't shed. You just have to cut them. Is that right?
You do have to cut them.
Yeah.
That's right.
How often?
I don't know, 6 weeks. 40. Some people are some people have very well groomed poodles, and they get frequent haircuts. But we go every 4 to 6 weeks, and
So it's like a person, pretty much.
Yeah, basically. Well, I haven't had a professional haircut in over a year. I bought scissors and trust my husband, but
You can do the Flowbee like George Clooney does.
I don't know what that is.
Have you not heard that?
No,
So
tell
George
me.
Clooney has been cutting his hair evidently for I don't even know how long, pretty much his whole life. It sounded like with a Flowbee, and it's literally it attaches to your vacuum cleaner, and it's this thing that I guess rotates and cuts your hair, and you can put in I guess guards to decide how long you want it to be, and you literally just suck it to your head, and then it just cuts, and you just go around, and I guess you can adjust the length, if you want a little shorter here or longer here or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just do it, and you just Yeah. So evidently he uses that thing to cut his own hair, and he cuts his son's hair with it.
That sounds great, and I won't be doing it.
Yeah, me either. I asked my the guy who cuts my hair. I asked him about it. He was like, "Oh yeah, they work." He said, "But you can tell because everything's the exact same length all the way around."
Yeah.
He said, "So it doesn't surprise me. That's what he uses."
That's funny.
Okay. All right. So we'll get back to actual work talk, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
So, did you have somebody help you in this as an buyer at the time? And when did that change? When did you go from art buyer to art producer? Did your responsibilities change with the title change, or is it the same thing? They just decided, well, you do more than just sit there and go, oh, you'd be good.
No, I'm trying to remember what year it was. I have to think of it in terms of like how old. I can always remember things based on how old my kids were yeah. So I'm thinking it was like my oldest son was maybe 3. He was born in 2003, so maybe 2000, somewhere between 2006 and 8.
Okay.
It was just that became a more contemporary term for what I do. I do know that there are, I don't think, I guess every agency has their own role definitions. And there are some people who are, the role of art buyer seems to feel a little more like a business manager in the agency environment. And the role of art producer is more like integrated producer now, which, then became another term. It's really
that basically the same thing. It's the same thing, more or less, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what kind of things are you making,
Right.
and what kind of people are you working with? What kinds of artists? What sorts of disciplines do they work in? What I do has changed less because of the change in the name of the role, and more just in terms of the evolution our business has undergone. I don't think there are too many people who can. There are certainly, but it's more and more difficult to just be a still photographer and not get into even little bits of motion like GIFs and cinemagraphs and things of that nature.
Yeah, it seems like it for sure. Yeah, I actually was probably 2 classes away from having a double major in media advertising and broadcast production.
Yeah.
And my father was paying for my school, and it was going to be an extra semester, and I'd already been in 4.5 years. He was like, you can pay for it. I was like, it's not worth having a double major in communications, but I loved it. That's when I started shooting video as well. But that's when you had, the VHS tape. You had to put one in this one in this one. You lost quality every time you made it. You had to splice the audio to go in there and all that stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a squirrel outside, and my dog wants to make sure I'm protected.
Absolutely. Mine does that anytime a dog's walking by and she can see, or people are walking by, she starts barking. What made you choose Chicago over like New York? Was it because Chicago was right next door?
Yeah, I think so. I wasn't as directed as a lot of people coming right out of college. I knew that I wanted to something, around storytelling and photography or production, or these were things that were sort of very interesting. And after that experience that I had working on the debate with George Bush, Bill Clinton, and Ross Perot.
Ross Perot. You get to meet Ross Perot?
I got to shake all of their hands.
Okay, was Bill Clinton really as mesmerizing as I've heard people say he is when he shakes your hand? He like shakes it and uses both hands, and he just kind of looks at you like you're the only person in the room kind of thing? Or is he just, because you're a PA and he was busy, he was like, hey, nice to meet you, and moved on?
It was very much a friendly but fast.
Right. Yeah.
So to me, it was like so meaningful.
Well, I bet. Yeah, absolutely.
It was, yeah. but after that, I considered moving to New York to be a page for CBS.
Oh, yeah.
And the people I had worked with, I was talking to them, but my college roommate was moving to Chicago. And it was a lot easier for me to move with her and get an apartment. And so that's what we did. It's one of those, you make these decisions when, especially in those young years, that just feel like, I don't know, I'm flipping a coin. I could go here, I could go there. And it just affects the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
Profoundly.
Yeah. It's amazing how that happens. I tell my daughters now, like, my oldest one is a sophomore in college. My youngest one was born in 2003, and she starts, I guess, August, I guess is when they start to school. But I tell them both, I'm like, you guys are at the point now, especially my older one. I was like, when you graduate or there's something you want to do, just go for it and try it and just get it out of the way and do it. Because, I mean, if you want to move to New York, Chicago, LA, just do it. Because at some point down the road, you're going to get to a point where you're like, yeah, I can't do that because I now have children or I'm married. And
that's right.
More difficult. So,
well, and I mean, I think from just a future career perspective, depending what you want to do, of course, it's interesting to see people who have followed their interests.
Yes.
And you really, it's difficult to know what you want to do until you explore your own interests. Yep. And so I think that's great advice you're giving your daughters. And freedom.
I've gone to New York. I would have gone to New York for a little bit right out of school and hung out and all that kind of stuff, and probably assisted and that kind of thing. But what would you, okay, so my oldest, she knows what I do. She wants to travel. Tell her a little bit about art producers. For somebody who's thinking about being an art producer or to consider it, what kind of things would you want them to know, good and bad, about the job? Do you travel a lot, or did you travel a lot when you were all allowed to travel? And, what is like a typical day, for you, like, and what are your main responsibilities? So if she was saying, hey, I want to be an art producer, what would you tell her overall to make her know the good and the bad of it, I guess?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Well, yes, I did travel quite a bit. And, it's interesting having older kids. My job is more fun than ever now that my kids are a little older.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like I'm, pulled in two different directions. So that's it. So, where your life is one consideration. But the good, the bad, and what an average typical day is. So for me, especially in COVID, I'm managing more projects than I used to manage at once. So right now I have 7 projects. 8 projects, and each one is at a different life cycle. And, I've been doing, like I said, I've been at my agency for 21 years. And before that, I had a lot of experience as well. So, kind of managing the life cycle of these jobs becomes less clunky, like in the front part of your brain, and more like you know how it works. It's like making a recipe that you know how to make really well. Although every job is I learn something new on every project. But I would say that for the good, why don't I just the good of it is the job can be very good as long as you're focused on creatively. If you can work on projects where the creative is interesting and everyone is sort of holding hands and saying, we want this to be creatively really good, and whatever it takes to make that happen, and we're all sort of working together to make that happen, that's when it's really good. That's when it's exciting. That's when you feel like these creative collaborations with photographers and with your creative team and clients are excited. those are the good jobs. Not every project is like that. There are nuts and bolts projects that are like, okay, we have an e-commerce project that has, you just refer to them as assets because it's not a lot of artistry as much as it's a product that works for clients. And often, you're struggling with not having enough resources, time or money. It's the eternal rub, time, quality, money. How do you optimize what you have and work with what you don't? So that's where it kind of gets tough. And an average day, there is no average day. It really depends on the life cycle of the projects that you're in. There's typically, I have I'll be at the point of finding photographers for one job. So that's like one process. Having creative calls and bidding another job, working with clients or cost consultants on another, and then you're in pre-production on yet another. Production.
How's the cost consulting thing work with you? Does that irritate you ever or always?
It used to irritate me more when I looked at it as a challenge to my own skill set. When I used to feel like, why do I need another person who is questioning me on what I'm supposed to be doing? I used to feel irked by it.
Okay.
I try to be more, I guess I've grown to be more objective about it. And it's, they have a role, and their role is to make sure that the clients are getting, and often they're also playing the role of the client who gets into the weeds on things like usage and variations and all of those sorts of things where, sometimes on the brand manager side, that isn't what they're focused on. So it's good to have someone who does focus on that. So I don't know. I find that if I embrace it and try to be objective about it, that that I can maintain my own equanimity as far as that is concerned, which to me, every day I start out and I'm like, I just want mental calmness today because there is a lot going on. I plug into my computer and sometimes I am just like, you just get in the zone and you don't come out until 6 p.m. Or whenever. And then there you are. No commute anymore.
Yeah. I guess that's good and bad. Yes.
Yeah.
Get more
I used to
work
love
done.
my commute. I'm a bike commuter. And so that was such a place to clear my head and shift gears. Well, you know what? I used to do it in the winter. And then last winter, and the winter before, our lake path has changed. The climate change is very real, and the path itself has changed.
Really?
And the water has been coming up. There's a spot on the lake path where the water was coming up more and more. And last winter, I had a scary experience where I found myself in the middle of I was just riding along and everything was clear the day before. And I looked down. It was one of those like a dream where you wake up and you're ill prepared for something. I was riding along, everything was great. And then I looked down and I was like on nothing but ice. It was just pure ice. And then it just went straight to the water. And I hadn't slipped, I hadn't had a problem. And then as soon as my awareness observed what was going on, I was like sliding, and I got off my bike. I carried it. I walked up, found some dry, sidewalk, and rode the rest of the way to work however I could. But after that, well, and then, in the spring we had the shutdown, but after that I stopped riding because it wasn't safe, and it wasn't giving me the enjoyment factor that I was doing it for.
Yeah, that would freak me out a little bit.
Yeah.
Were they going to fix that so where the water doesn't come over as much there?
That would be such a major capital project.
Yeah.
And I think there are too many other projects to tackle. But I have to say that I've not been on the lake path for some time. So I really don't know what the conditions were like this winter.
Wow.
I've got my bike on a trainer now. And
Oh, yeah?
when I shut off the computer, I just go downstairs and I get on the trainer, and it's not the same, but it still gives a little transition from end of work day to the time to chill.
Do you have a screen you can see like different places, or you just get on it and just ride?
No,
You have a big monitor in front of you and like
I have it's in my basement, and I have a TV down there. And honestly, and I'm not proud of this, but it's just true. I watch a little Bravo.
Yeah.
I'm currently watching like 2015 Ladies of London while I spin for 40 minutes.
Hey, that's all right. My daughter loves anything Hallmark, especially around Christmas. She is to the point where she wants to live in a Hallmark movie. As long as she wants a little town, she wants to own a cupcake shop, she wants to meet the man of her dreams, who happens to be, some rich dude. But the little town needs to be near a mall and a Target. So that's a little bit of an issue. But
that's
good. At least you
there you go.
The thing with you go down there and kind of transition from work to regular life.
Yeah, you need it. You need it.
Have you ever gotten projects mixed up? Have you ever been on a creative call and thought you were going to talk about something else, especially when you were younger? And as soon as they start to call you, oh crap, wrong project. Okay.
Well, no. However, I used to have a dial-in number, and if you would schedule calls too close together, which I learned very quickly not to do this, somebody would call in, and you would still be talking to the person you were talking to before.
Right.
Which just felt disrespectful. I felt very bad once or twice that happened, but
yeah, because I've called in before, not on the Zoom calls, but just on the phone, and called in, and and they don't know you're there, or they don't hear the little beep, and you just sit there and you just listen to everything they're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Hi, and then nobody says anything, but they still keep talking to each other. I'm like, all right, well, I'll just sit here for a second, and then I'll
right. You're like, hello, I'm here.
Just see what else they're talking about. Let's see if they're talking about me yet or not.
Yeah, right.
Well, so do you do portfolio shows? Have you done those things where you go and you look through portfolios at these big shows and all that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. I've done those.
Do you like those? Do you see? Have you found anybody from those?
I'm trying to think if I have met. So I've done the big ones where people go and you go around the room. Columbia College, which has a portfolio program and a photography program. That was one that I always enjoyed doing because you'd see the graduating seniors and seeing their work was really cool. And our local APA, would do portfolio reviews, but people would sign up. And so they're one-on-one, and it sort of feels like speed dating.
Right.
And I've been to shows like that. Those are great. I think any way that you can get your work in front of as many eyeballs as possible is beneficial to a photographer.
Yeah.
Especially, I think that it's good because you learn to not take everything too personally, hopefully. And you learn that there are going to be 20 different opinions on the same image. And so maybe it helps to crystallize your own opinion, by seeing that there's something subjective here. And then you're going to get some really good feedback from some people. And if you can start to aggregate, like, what does good feedback mean?
Mm-hmm.
And most importantly, I think that photographers often hesitate to show their portfolios until they feel like it's perfect.
Right.
And your portfolio it's a living document or book or collection of images that should always be changing as you change and as your vision changes and as the market changes. It's always going to be changing, and it's never going to be perfect.
Yes.
And it's not like,
Right.
don't release your personal attachment to it and objectively receive feedback, which it's how hard. You're an artist.
It can
You feel
hard.
personally connected.
I think, well, for me, the hardest part for me is when my wife does it. And and that's all me. That's all I want her to think everything I do is wonderful. And so when she comes in and goes, I don't know about that shot, or I don't like that because of this. And she's got a great eye. So
Mm-hmm.
she like picks stuff apart and occasionally. So for me, it's like, ugh. But if somebody else does it, I don't have a problem. Like my first, I guess it was a portfolio review in New York. I went to see a photo agent,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still friends to this day. And that was 20 something years ago. And he's flipping through my book, and he stops at a cover from a magazine. It was a small magazine here in Charlotte. And he stops at the cover and goes, "What the fuck is this doing in here?" And I went, and he's like, "Is it because it's a cover?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, the clothing, the styling's bad. The model's bad. The photography's good, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter. Get
Right.
rid of this." And I realized I wasn't offended by that because he told me what the reason was for it. And from that point on, we became friends because he would just crack on anything that he didn't like. He would tell me exactly why it was. There was none of this, "All right, thank you. We'll let you know if we have any openings,"
Right.
that kind of thing. And so from that point forward, I don't think nobody's ever said anything that harsh. So I'm like,
Right.
I've had one art producer in New York who looked at some stuff. She goes, "All right, don't show this to anybody ever again." I was like, in New
That's
York,
great.
and I loved it. She's like, "This," and then she actually went through. We were at lunch. She's like, these things, show this, show this, show this. Just get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. And
Mm-hmm.
then it was amazing because after she did that, the meetings before had been okay. The next two meetings, completely different. I
'Cause you
mean, the
took her
feedback I
advice.
got was, because I had most of it on the iPad.
Uh-huh.
And so I got rid of it and I had a book with me as well. But when I made those changes on the iPad, the next two meetings completely different from the meetings before.
Right. It's funny. It's understandable that people, when they're starting out, they want something for everyone,
Yes.
and, or if you have something that shows that you were commissioned, to do something,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have a ton of commissions, oh, well, I have to show this commission, even if it isn't amazing. And I would rather see personal work that's interesting, that reflects where you are, than commissions that, show that you got a gig.
Right. Yeah, I agree. There was a photographer years ago when I was just starting out. I was in Miami for about 3 months, and this guy had a book, and there was not one piece of copy on anything in his book. And he was like, "Your book, you show what you want to shoot, or you show it without the copy." He said, "Because the art directors will look at it and go, 'Oh, I hate that copy,' or 'I hate the way they did this,' or whoever it is." And he said, "This way you show what you did. Then you can always put a thing to the side, go, 'Here are the clients I've shot for,' or 'Here's the stuff I've shot." He said, "It's not as distracting." And I was like, that makes sense to me. And because there were times where I think the copy on it or whatever was distracting from the shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that for sure.
Yeah. You have to think about who the audience is, and they will focus, even if it has nothing to do with your photography. It will take the focus away. And that's the last thing you want.
And I learned that right. I think I kept it in there. And then after that, I had a meeting with the creative director, and the creative director was like, God, I hate the way they put this on here. I hate that they put that over there. Why didn't they put it over here? I was like, okay, yeah, he's totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get rid of it.
Yeah, right.
What's the photographer done? What's the worst thing you've had a photographer do that irritates you? Well, maybe not the worst thing, but what do photographers do from either the worst thing or just in
Mm,
general that irritates you as, or even agents as an art producer?
mm. That's
Because I know we
I,
do something that irritates you.
well, that's a very broad question. It would be not being really straight with me when things are maybe going off the rails. Like everybody has a plan. I expect if I'm going to assign a job to someone, I've learned enough over the years to know I want to know the plan. I want to know the plan in detail. A good place to put that plan is the treatment. It's
Yeah.
like, here's the treatment, and then here's the estimate, which is the blueprint, really, or like getting into the code,
Right.
But I had a project. One in particular stands out as painful. Obviously, I'm not going to get into any
Well, yeah.
specific details, but we had a project where we were making a prop, and the person who got the job had the most elaborate in their treatment. Their prop was the most elaborate, and they promised a great deal. And so the creatives and the clients were excited that they could do it within our budget and time. And we were meeting all of our benchmarks for like meeting and seeing things, and everything appeared to be fine. And then we went out, I traveled to see the prop a few days before, because everything kind of hinged on this prop. So which was a costume. And so so we went out to see this prop, this costume, which was supposed to be, it was supposed to be able to make expressions, and it was like it was a great plan and a lot of promise. And I'll never forget walking into this studio, and it was supposed to be at the 95% line 4 days prior to the shoot.
Wow.
And this thing was like eyeballs, no skin. I mean, it was like a horror show. And it was the worst possible case scenario of how wrong it and I was completely blindsided because every time benchmark had been achieved up to that point. And so we ended up having to create it in CGI and just like shoot the bones.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How did that affect the budget?
We made things work.
Right.
We made things work the way we made things work.
I can't imagine doing that.
Right. So, it's really, look.
Do you think that was something where they knew this wasn't going to work out, or they really thought they could do it and then just found out into it they couldn't do it?
Mark, I would say that the human condition is that we lean into wishful thinking to get us through difficult times. In the professional setting, wishful thinking is not appropriate.
No.
but I see people engage in it often. It was wishful thinking. So to answer your question, I know that difficult conversations can be really hard to have. You don't know how it's going to be received, but I always advise people to lean into transparency early and often. So, be very clear about benchmarks that need to be reached along the way. And when things get a little off track, everybody needs to understand, here's what this means. Here's what this means to time, money, creative. And you set expectations across the board.
I actually have to hold myself back sometimes from telling clients that kind of thing, because I've learned that sometimes give it the time to work itself out so I know what it is, because I've had shoots where I was told I'm booked. I'd already told the client, one client, hey, I may not be available for this shoot on the days we have on hold because I have another shoot that's going to be confirmed. And they're like, that's fine, not a problem, just let us know. So I was told, basically, I have the shoot, we'll confirm it tomorrow, but it's going to be yours. I'm like, okay. So I went ahead, and instead of waiting till the next day to get the actual confirmation, I went ahead and called the other client because I wanted them to be able to move forward and get their shoot rolling. And so I said, hey, I'm going to have this other shoot. It's 4 days. It was going to be, their shoot was going to be a 1-day deal. We had already talked about it ahead of time before I ever told them I could accept this other 4-day gig. And they said, okay, no problem. Just let us know. So then I told them, hey, I've been told I'm going to have this gig. They said, okay. The next day, my client and their client had gotten into an argument over them choosing me without my client choosing me without their client giving full approval on it. So to show that they had the power, my client's client said, no, we're going to go with this other photographer. So I ended up losing both jobs because I was trying to be good to my other client, let them move forward. So I called them up and was like, hey, the other job fell through. Have you found somebody else yet? And they're like, yeah, we did. Sorry. I'm like, damn.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I try and wait a little bit, but I'm always so anxious to let my clients know if there's anything that's coming up that I want them to be prepared for it, that I'm trying now to like, okay, is this absolutely going to be a thing? Like with that thing, I think I would have figured it out pretty quickly. Hey, this is going to be an issue.
Yeah, but to your point, there's nuance. There's nuance and there's transparency. I mean, listen, once you're working with someone else's money and they've trusted you with a job, that's when transparency, but transparency without without necessarily emotional interpretation.
Yeah. Because I want the whole thing it comes down to is I want you to look good to your client ultimately. Right. So I want to make sure that there's nothing that's going to surprise you, when we come up with a shoot, for sure.
Yeah.
So with all the traveling you've done, where's the favorite place, the place you had the most fun on a shoot traveling to?
Oh boy. I mean, I've had the opportunity to travel to places like Barcelona and Stockholm, and those are wonderful places to shoot. But I have also done production in Colorado and Northern California, and I think that I've probably, I love outdoor photography. That when you're doing location photography in the outdoors, it's a different kind of problem solving. It's a different kind of bonding with your team. It's you run into different you have different adventures. And I love that. That's just me. That's what I love most of all.
Well, I agree. Yeah, completely. Especially when you do anything on a cool location. Do you build in time to like hang out and go see wherever you're going? If you're going someplace you really want to check it out, do you build in that time either before or after the shoot, or?
You know what? So my sons are 15 and 17. And so now they're at an age where they still require parenting, but it's much less intensive, right? So when they were younger, I would always take a red eye home. Like
me too. Yep.
I was like, just nothing would keep me away from my kids 1 second more than, than I had to. But I do see that changing in the future, if I can. If there's,
for me, it's worse working in town. So if I have a shoot in town, I'm just like, okay, let's shoot. And as soon as it's over, I want to get out and get home, get back and see my kids. If I'm out of
Sure.
town, I'll work 15, 20 hours because
Yeah.
there's nothing for me to get back to, other than my hotel. So I'm
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, when the shoot's over, I've always been like, all right, I'm going to get the first flight back.
Yeah.
I'm going to head home as soon as I can. But now mine's got one in college, one's getting ready to start college. And even now, she
Yeah.
doesn't come out of her room. She's in the IB.
Right.
She's nonstop in front of a computer doing some
Yeah.
project that's due. So we see her literally with all the at-home schooling now. She comes down, grabs something real quick and takes it back up to her room for breakfast. She'll come down for a few minutes for lunch, come down for a few minutes for dinner. And if you're really lucky, she can hang out after dinner for a little bit. But lately it's been right back up to her room to do stuff.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And that's her senior year. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
They should give me a break.
I know it's this year. I mean, it's really crazy that we're coming up on a year of this life. Last year on March 13th, I was in Los Angeles and flying home and just like, what's going on? I was trying to order a couple dumbbells, and just like it was. I don't know. It was nuts. And
that was my last day of
is.
work too, was the 13th. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had 4.5 months of sitting down doing nothing. Well, I was doing things. I was like, that's how I ended up redoing the website and meeting people and doing this thing. But
that's great.
I sat down so much that I got like some pain down my back and in my leg, and I had to start going to a chiropractor to fix it. Now I stand up a lot more if I'm home instead of sitting down. All right, so I'm going to ask you the last question, then I'll let you go. What is the strangest or most interesting or coolest story you can think of from your career in producing?
Oh, well, that's such a hard question.
Yes, I know. And that's why.
Thanks a lot.
I hadn't thought about how hard it was until Maria wanted me to do a podcast with me. And so
and they asked you that.
A friend of mine asked me, and I was thinking, that is because your whole life is, to you, it can be kind of normal. Like this whole thing over here is just normal, but to other people, like, oh, wow, that's interesting over there. So I was trying to change it to something that's like maybe like the best story you can think of from, or something.
Well, like that. Okay. So it was before I had kids, and I had 4 shoots that I scheduled back to back to back, all 4 shoots in a row. So I was out in LA. I was out there for 28 days. One after another. It was crazy. And that was the summer. Was it summer or spring? I think it was maybe springtime. And it was the year that there were a number of fires that were set in the Sequoia National Forest by a forest ranger. I don't know if you recall that.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. And so we were doing a shoot that involved shooting a grizzly bear that was supposed to be ignored at a fishery. So the idea was this grizzly bear was ignoring the salmon as they were, because it was interested in the product.
Right.
And we shot, trying to remember, a beaver that was ignoring wood, and puppies that were ignoring shoes, and a shark that was ignoring feet.
Hey, so we were all these animals actually on set.
Well, so for the feet, no, it wasn't CGI. Oh. No, not at all. So for the feet, we went off Catalina Island and we were on a boat, and the photographer went underwater and shot the feet. And then we went to the zoo and he shot the shark.
Okay.
And then, but we had this grizzly bear that was a trained grizzly bear. And we were bringing it out to this location in the Sequoia National Forest. And we had gone to a salmon hatchery and shot, and it was amazing because these salmon were jumping and it was gorgeous, such beautiful forest. I mean, talk about like my favorite kind of shooting, just beautiful. And we were out in the Sequoia National Forest, and we were at this at this lodge, and I remember waking up in the morning and I thought, oh no, I'm getting sick. You know, you have that like scratch in the back of your throat,
Right.
and you know, as soon as like I consciously started to feel this like, oh, I'm getting sick, there was an urgent banging at my door. And I mean, we were out in the middle of nowhere. And I do want to say that I was a much younger producer, and now I would not let my gas tank run down to empty, but I had not had a chance to fill the gas tank, and I was going to fill it the next morning, right? So I go outside, and there's this it looked like snow, but it wasn't. It was ash on everything. And my colleagues, we were all coming outside, told to evacuate the area. The door knocking was the local firefighters saying, we're evacuating the area. The fire is moving this way. You have to leave. Well, we also had a trailer that had this grizzly bear we were going to be shooting that day.
Oh, God.
So suddenly we have like this evacuation. I have no gas in my tank. We're out in the middle of nowhere. The gas stations are all closed. So we had to get the bear out of, and then we didn't have iPhones at the time.
Right.
You know? I mean, this is like, this was 2001.
Yeah.
So it was like a whole different,
Oh,
I think it was
completely.
2001 or 2002, around, you know, so it was a whole different ball of wax. So anyway, we all lived to tell, and we found a new location and got out of there. But luckily we were up in the hills because I just had to glide. I just did not have my foot on the gas, and it was just gliding.
Wow.
It was just, I learned a lot from that experience. And a scorpion had gotten scared into my computer bag from that I discovered the next morning when I was working on my computer.
Did
So that
you
was
open your bag and the scorpion just come flying out of there, crawling out of there?
more crawling. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
I have
kind
an
of,
assistant who told me he was staying with some friends and he went to put his boots on. And this was down in Alabama. And the guy was like, wait, shake your boots out. And he's like, what? He goes, shake your boots out. And he turned it over and like a scorpion fell out of his boot.
yeah.
I was like, in Alabama? He was like, yeah. I was like, holy
Well,
hell.
yeah, this was,
What'd you do when you saw a scorpion? Did you freak out?
I grabbed tissue and I put it in the toilet and I flushed it down.
Uh,
What would you do?
oh, no. See, in my head, okay, I'm guessing it was like this scorpion kind of
No,
thing. In my
no,
head,
it
it's
was
this
like,
big.
it was
Oh,
like,
okay.
it was
See,
like
in my
little.
head, he's like that big. And
It
I'm
was
like, I'm
little.
not touching that damn thing. But
Yeah, well, no, if it was that big, I
yeah,
would
I
have.
just imagine like this 5, 6 inch scorpion. And I'm like, no, that would freak me out a little bit. Well, that's a good story. I like it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for doing this.
Mark, thank you for asking me. I'm so happy to meet you. And I meant to ask you the Evil Knievel story.
Oh yeah, listen to my podcast.
Okay, I will. I'll hear it on there.
My dad.
The one where you're interviewed?
Yeah, the one where I'm interviewed.
Okay, I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah. Well, good. That'll be good. You'll find out then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. All right. Well, thank
Actually,
you.
I'll tell you real quick. My dad was a photographer. He ran a PR division at an insurance company. They sponsored a golf tournament. Evil Knievel happened to be there. And my dad shot pictures of them. And we had a dark room in the house. And my dad's like, you want to come down to the dark room? I was like, sure. So he'd already developed the negatives and he's doing these prints of Evil Knievel. And I'd never been in the dark room at the time. So he did this shot of Evil Knievel and I couldn't really tell what it was. He puts it in the developer and all of a sudden I see this shot of Evil Knievel come popping up. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's how, the whole photography thing started. And then that was first or second grade. And so by the time I hit seventh grade, he had taught me how to develop film and shoot. And I found out, I could shoot for the school yearbook, and I was too skinny to play football, but the cheerleaders liked having their picture taken. So
Yeah.
it was another way to meet cheerleaders. So that was it.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's a good story.
That's how it all started out. But
All right.
yeah, it was wonderful meeting you. I enjoyed it. You had some great
Thanks.
stories.
Thanks. I
This was
really
cool.
appreciate you taking the time, and
Thank you.
look forward to hearing more of your podcast, seeing more of your photography, and talking again.
Sounds good. Thank you very
All right.
much. Talk to you later.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.